Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're traveling way back in time, over 2,000 years to the noisy, vibrant streets of ancient Athens. We're going to uncover a truly incredible story, a story about loss, discovery, and the absolute game-changing power of one quiet, persistent mind. We're talking, of course, about Plato. And look, we aren't just going to rattle off dry facts here. We're going to see exactly how one man's life completely rewired the way humanity thinks. Okay, let's dive right in with a massive, timeless question. What does it actually mean to live a good life? What is right? What is true? Now, these are ancient questions, sure, but they're the exact same questions that moved an entire city forward millennia ago, and honestly, they still echo in our own lives today. To even understand how we have the framework to ask these things, we've got to understand the guy who made them the absolute center of his life.
Part 1. A boy destined for power.
To really understand the philosopher, we first have to meet the young man. Born around 428 BC into a super important family, we're talking kings and powerful politicians in his bloodline, Plato was literally expected to rule Athens. His life was just overflowing with privilege, the absolute best teachers, and limitless possibility. And you know, this beautifully shatters that whole old man in a toga stereotype we've all got stuck in our heads. Young Plato was actually a wealthy, physically imposing champion wrestler. In fact, his very name probably comes from the Greek word for broad or wide. And for a while, he fully believed he was going to rule too. Athens back then was this place of incredible beauty, but man, it was also incredibly noisy. People would gather in the agora, these public squares, and just loudly argue about justice and power all day. Initially, Plato really wanted to shape that noisy world. But as he listened, he slowly started to realize that a far deeper, much quieter world of discovery actually existed right beneath the surface. He just kind of didn't know how to tap into it yet.
Part 2. The man who asked why.
So Plato's whole trajectory completely flips when he bumps into this strange, barefoot older guy named Socrates. This guy owned practically nothing, had no official school, and never wrote a single book. But what he did have were questions. Socrates didn't teach by just lecturing people. Instead, he'd literally stop powerful politicians, generals, and merchants right in the middle of the street and gently, patiently prove to them that they didn't actually have the answers they thought they did. Just picture this. You're walking through the bustling streets of ancient Athens. You're totally confident in your worldview, and suddenly you get stopped by this barefoot old man and hit with a foundational question. What is courage? You totally think you know what courage is, right? Right up until you actually have to stand there and explain it. And then, boom, he'd follow it right up by challenging your very concept of what it actually means to be good. He basically made the most powerful people in the city realize their own ignorance. The absolute crucial point here is that when Plato watched Socrates asking these relentless questions, it felt like a door slowly opening in a dark room, just letting in this small but brilliant beam of light. For the very first time, Plato felt like he was hearing something fundamentally true. He dropped the whole politics and power ambition completely and just started following this strange old man around every single day, learning how to actually think carefully and ask honest questions.
Part 3. The hemlock and the fire.
Unfortunately, this quiet pursuit of truth was about to violently collide with the really harsh reality of Athenian politics. Look at 399 BC, right here. This is the pivotal, deeply tragic moment that basically cleaved Plato's life into two totally distinct eras. It's the year his beloved teacher was suddenly ripped away from him. The people of Athens made a really devastating decision. They actually put Socrates on trial, claiming he was corrupting the minds of the youth and disrespecting the gods. Plato was sitting right there in the courtroom, watching in absolute agony as the judges voted to punish his teacher with death. Socrates was forced to drink a cup of hemlock poison, and he died peacefully right there, surrounded by his closest friends. But right before he drank that poison, Socrates spoke these immortal words to his judges with just the utmost dignity. A life without questioning is not worth living. He flat out refused to beg. He refused to pretend to be someone he wasn't. He chose to face death rather than give up his lifelong pursuit of the truth. As you can imagine, the grief Plato felt was just enormous. But out of that devastating personal loss, this incredible fire was kindled inside him. He made a deep, quiet vow that he wasn't going to let his teacher's words just fade away. So he started writing these incredibly detailed dialogues, always placing Socrates right at the center of the conversation. Finding it impossible to stay in the city that killed his mentor, Plato packed up and left Athens. He traveled to Egypt, Italy, and Sicily, just searching, patiently for how to build a society where injustice wouldn't win. Part 4. The First University. After years of traveling, observing, and really deep learning, a much more mature Plato finally returns to Athens, and he's ready to build something the world had literally never seen before. In 387 BC, he sets up a school in this quiet little garden called the Academy. Guys, this was essentially the very first university in the Western world. It wasn't just a room where you sat and listened to a lecture, it was a sanctuary entirely dedicated to careful, rigorous thinking. People from all over gathered there to question and discover together, diving into mathematics, philosophy, science, and politics.
20. That is the staggering number of years that a brilliant young boy from northern Greece spent studying under Plato at the Academy. And that boy's name? Aristotle. I mean, that single number right there just proves the immense generational impact of this school. Plato was literally shaping the minds that were going to go on and shape the rest of human history. Part 5. Stepping into the light.
Right at the very heart of everything the Academy taught was this one radical, honestly beautiful concept about the nature of our reality. Plato believed the world actually has two sides. There's the visible world, the streets, the buildings, all the everyday stuff we see with our physical eyes. He believed all of that was merely shadows. But then there's the real world. This is the deeper realm of actual truth, pure beauty, and goodness. And that world exists in a place that only the mind can reach, through careful, patient thinking. To explain this concept, Plato came up with a story that is still taught in classrooms all over the globe today. It's called the allegory of the cave. He basically asks us to imagine prisoners who have been chained deep inside a pitch-black cave their whole lives, just watching shadows cast on a wall by a fire behind them. To them, those shadows are the entire world. It's all they know. But if one prisoner is suddenly freed, turns around, and walks all the way out into the blinding, beautiful sunlight, they finally realize that the shadows were just an illusion. It's a brilliant, brilliant way of illustrating our very human desire to step out of confusion and into the clear, bright light of real understanding. Plato passed away around 348 BC at nearly 80 years old. He really spent his entire life celebrating the desire to learn, to grow, and to just honestly question the world around us. Through his incredibly detailed dialogues and the foundation of the Academy, he basically gave humanity a permanent language to talk about things like truth, justice, and the soul. He proved once and for all that learning isn't just about absorbing a bunch of facts, it's about completely transforming how you see the world. I want to leave you with this final, really powerful thought. You see, Plato's life wasn't just ancient history. It's a living practice. Because every single time you stop right in the middle of the noise of your own daily life and honestly ask yourself a really difficult question, like, what kind of person do I want to become? Well, you are following directly in the quiet, persistent, and incredibly brave footsteps of Plato. Keep asking those questions, keep stepping toward the light, and hey, thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.